From an early age, the children's identity is forming. And a lot of time, the children's identity is meshed with the identity of the caregivers. They have not individuated, that's how we call it, become their own individuals. So whatever is happening at home or in their environment, the children take over that and they own it. So they do not know any different because their world is shaped by the world in the home and the world in community. In fact, we normally say that a child experiences God based on the way they experience their parent. And we have many people who struggle with understanding God as a loving God who is always there for them because their parents were not present, their parents were abusive, so they experience God as authoritarian, as angry, waiting to whip them. And that is how identity is formed in children. And that's how come when children have gone through adverse experiences, they impact on them very negatively because the children don't know any other identity other than the identity of their caregivers, identity of the home, and even identity of the community. How can adverse childhood experiences be prevented or mitigated? Adverse childhood experiences can be prevented, first of all, by people choosing to be aware and to heal, emotionally heal from the effect caused by the adverse childhood experiences that they experienced. That is one way that is very effective, that is like turning off the switch or turning off the tap. Because once somebody is healed, then they will pass health to their children and to the people they interact with. We normally say hurt people hurt others. So when somebody has gone through adverse childhood experiences, they will hurt somebody else either by doing that which they should not have done or by not doing that which they should have done. Another thing is adverse childhood experiences can be prevented or mitigated actually by forming safe, stable, protective environment, homes that is, and society, and also by sustaining the same. So one of the most important ways I can say of helping somebody, a child who is either going through an adverse childhood experience or who has gone through it, is by being a buffer. Research has shown that a child needs just one emotionally stable adult in their life. It may be one of the parents, it may be another caregiver, an uncle, an auntie, a teacher. And once this person is there, they act as a buffer for the child. That means that if you are aware that there's a child going through adverse childhood experiences, even if you feel you may not be able to do much, you can be there. You can be there as the buffer. The child can be coming to you. The child can be talking about what they're going through, and you can offer that nurture. You can offer that comfort to the child, because we say that whatever is not grieved is going to be repeated. Whatever is not grieved is going to be repeated. So if the child or the person having gone through adverse childhood experiences does not grieve, they are going to repeat because the body keeps the score. So whatever doesn't come out, it actually remains and it changes the body in ways that are quite devastating. So having it as a family, as a community, having stable, nurturing environments goes a long way towards preventing and or mitigating adverse childhood experiences. How does parental divorce or separation as an adverse childhood experience affect children? Now, parental separation or divorce affects the entire family. But for children, it can be scary, it can be confusing, it can be painful. We normally say in parenting that the greatest gift that you can give a child is their childhood. Let me repeat that. The greatest gift that you can ever give to a child is give them their childhood. A child has got no business being told about the issues that adults have. A child has got no business worrying about school fees, worrying about housing, worrying about food. These things need to be provided by the caregivers. So when parents are going through divorce, separation, the child is thrown in turmoil because they actually think it is my fault, it is my problem. If I was a better child, my parents would not have separated, my parents would not have been divorced. And many times, because of the nature of the relationship being broken, you will find because the adults are going through this, they are not emotionally present for these children because they are so engrossed or they are so wrapped in their own pain and having to deal with what they need to deal with. So you will find they are not even there to take care of this child who is confused and who needs reassurance, but there is nobody to offer the reassurance. So the child feels emotionally abandoned. And when they feel emotionally abandoned, they are likely to cling to people. You find they become very clingy because they are afraid that the people in their lives are going to leave. Another aspect on the flip side, so they may either be clingy or they might be detached because they know that these people are going to leave anyway. And this is what we call reactive attachment disorder. So because of what has happened, they react either to be safe by not attaching to anybody or anything, or by clinging because they feel the people are going to leave. So I would rather cling to the person that I'm having now. And they might actually even act out because they are feeling, I don't have the attention that I need. So they might act out. You find that they're having school problems. They're having behavioral problems because in their mind, this is subconscious. It's like they're trying to bring the parents together. It's like they're trying to bring the parents together, uniting the parents in this problem. Okay? It's not uncommon to see children in divorced or separated homes having a lot of problems. And sometimes we just think that's how it is, but it's a subconscious way of trying to unite, to rally these parents to solve a common problem or to attack a common enemy. So they will have trouble in their relationships because of the reactive attachment disorder. As they grow older and maybe get into their own families, they are going to be insecure, most likely, unless they have dealt with the effect of separation or divorce. They are going to be insecure and they will be clinging to their partner. They will be checking on the phones of the partner. They will be very needy and very dependent. And this is what we call sabotage. So they end up sabotaging their relationship because somebody cannot live that way. So the partner that they are clinging on ends up leaving them anyway. Or if they don't leave them, you will find the relationship is not healthy for any of them because it's stifling and it brings out the worst in both of them. And it's not actually uncommon to see people who as children experience divorce, separation from their parents, also ending up divorced or separated. However much they desire not to, because they say, no, I wouldn't want to go through what my parents went through. I wouldn't want my children to go through what I went through. You will find the very thing that they went through simply because of sabotaging their relationships, either because of isolation, communication skills, insecurity. You find the pressure is too much on their partner and even on the relationship itself or even on themselves. And they end up also divorced or separated. And this is the generational nature of this sort of adverse childhood experience that is as a result of divorce or parental separation. So now, is it better to raise children in a domestically abusive environment or to live and raise children as maybe co-parents or even as a single parent? This is an interesting question because what we have been told, what we have observed, and what we have heard is that people saying, I'm staying for the children. When the children grow older, I am going to leave. What they don't know is that the greatest impact on the child occurs during the formative years. In fact, somebody would rather leave when the children are young and come back to the abuse when the children are older because the impact is now not as much. So during the formative years, as we said earlier on, the children are very vulnerable. In fact, let me put it this way. What cannot be communicated has an impact on the body. So at the age that a child cannot speak, that is the age, or cannot speak properly, the vocabulary, the language is not fully developed. It's at that age that the impact of whatever is happening to them is greatest. A friend of mine was in an abusive marriage, and one time she said that they had an argument with the husband in the morning, and he slapped her so hard. Their daughter was very young, I think 9 months, some months because she was not walking. And the husband slapped her so hard, she bled from the ears. She said in that instant, the daughter screamed. And when they checked, the daughter ran a very high fever that led to convulsions. and the child was sick for a while. She had to, and when the child went to hospital, they took the child to hospital, there was nothing. Nothing could be seen, no infection, and the child just ran the high fever, and of course she had to separate for some time and give the child time to heal from that environment. So living in a domestically abusive or violent environment actually has the greatest damage on the children, especially during the formative years. So it's far better to separate and pursue emotional healing, because again, this is important. Somebody may separate, but they're still very toxic because they keep on holding on to the abuse or the effect, that the relationship, the marriage had on them. So it's important to separate, take time to emotionally heal, and if there's an opportunity to co-parent, parent together as healthy adults who are separated, or if there's no opportunity like that, the parent who has taken custody of the children can parent the children. Because again, we said it takes one emotionally stable adult to raise an emotionally healthy and strong child. So a child just needs only one person. So yes, the stakes are high. We have been taught differently, but I just want to say from a parenting emotional perspective, it's far much better to separate oneself from an emotionally abusive or domestically violent environment and parent a child in an environment that is emotionally healthy. Because again, what this teaches a child is that love and abuse can coexist, which is really a twisted and sick way that love hurts. So the child grows to become an adult who is expecting that for me to be loved, I must feel pain. There must be pain involved. So they learn to also tolerate pain even in their own relationships and even other environments. What are toxic relationships and how are they related to adverse childhood experiences? Many times when we talk about toxic relationships, we only think of romantic relationships, but that's not necessarily the case. A toxic relationship is any relationship or any way that two people relate that brings the worst in them. It just feels bad, it just doesn't feel good, and it's not healthy. It doesn't give room or opportunity for somebody to thrive, love, enjoy, and grow. So they are not fulfilling. They bring out the worst in somebody. In some circles, sometimes you will find it's called a trauma bond. People are bonded at the place where they were wounded. So while they are so closely knit, but it's in a very negative way, and it brings out the worst in them. So they may be physically abusive, they may be emotionally abusive, they may be sexually abusive, but generally it just doesn't feel good. And anybody who is in a toxic relationship, they just know. We have what we call the gut brain. It's called the enteric nervous system. And even in our various languages, there's a way they just say that my stomach just tells me. Like in my language, if I translate loosely, we say, I'm hearing water in my stomach. There's just something that doesn't sound right. So those are toxic relationships. They are relationship with adverse childhood experiences. When somebody has gone through adverse childhood experiences, they have developed a higher tolerance for toxic stress. Toxic relationships produce toxic stress. And so somebody has gone through adverse childhood experiences, they have a higher tolerance. Adverse childhood experiences are like an electric shock. The first time a child is yelled at, they are beaten, they get shocked. There's a shock, there's a certain reaction. But as the caregivers keep doing it over and over again, the child becomes numb. It's a trauma response, freezing. It's a way of coping. So you will find when somebody has gone through adverse childhood experiences, they are at a greater risk of forming toxic relationships. And this can begin from very early as a child. During the tender years, you will find the child gets into relationships with bullies. This is the child who will either be bullied or the child who is going to bully. Both of them are unhealthy. One is a victim, one is the perpetrator. And you will find even as they are being bullied, some of them, they still keep on associating with the bully. As they grow older and maybe they are even in same sex, same gender relationships, you will find they are with friends who bring out the worst in them. Maybe the friend ridicules, maybe the friend mocks them, Maybe the friend is out to just get things from them. Maybe they are always out to praise. They are always out praising the friend. So generally, this sort of relationship does not engender any form of growth or any form of enjoyment or any form of flexibility. It's a rigid relationship where you have to perform this, you have to perform for you to be accepted. As people get into romantic relationships, teenage years, adulthood, you will find these romantic relationships may be abusive, or they may be what we call codependent relationships. Relationships whereby one partner is irresponsible, or they are addicted, or they are mentally unwell, and the other one is an enabler. So the other one keeps on fueling. They keep on fueling the need of this other one, this other person who is unhealthy. Actually, both of them are unhealthy. It is the same coin with different sides. And we are having of late a lot of talk on narcissists. It's better to call it narcissistic tendencies, which affect a lot of relationships. That is as a result of adverse childhood experiences. So these sort of relationships actually, it's like a downward spiral. Things don't get better. Sometimes people keep hoping and waiting, but unless somebody begins to put a stop to it, things don't get better. And unfortunately, a lot of them actually lead to death, or even by affecting the health of the person, or even physically, murder, homicide, and even suicide, because ultimately somebody deteriorates by virtue of being in this toxic relationship.